I now have the privilege of introducing our keynote speaker, Richard Myers, president of Kansas State University. From 2001 to 2005, he served as the 15th chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and was the principal military advisor to the U.S. President, Secretary of Defense, and the National Security Council. And as you know, tomorrow marks the nation's 100th Veterans Day. Whether in the military or in his leadership in public education, he has led his life in service to our nation. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Richard Myers.
Thank you, sir. So good to have a... Thank you very much. Go Bucks. Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me to address this group, Peter, wherever you are. You can't turn Peter down when he calls and says, would you please do this? So I'm doing it. Well, I'm eager to do it, actually, because I have a slant on things that maybe you haven't thought about, or maybe you have. But the reflection it caused me over the last couple of months is really helpful to understanding kind of my role in life as we move forward in higher education. Yes, tomorrow's Veterans Day, and by the way, I went to Kansas State University to be a veterinarian. I switched into engineering and became a vet anyway, but maybe a different kind of vet. Proud of my service, as I'm sure all of those are who stood. I found out when I got to Kansas State that at the land-grant institutions, ROTC was mandatory. I didn't know that until I was pre-enrolling. They said, you got to sign up for ROTC. There are 2 lines, Army and Air Force, figure it out. And I thought Air Force sounded kind of snappy, so I went into that. But I never intended to make the military a career. Even when I was qualified to be a pilot, went to pilot training, I thought 5 years and I'll do something else. And 5 years turned into 40, mainly because of this sense of serving something bigger than yourself. There were many reasons, but that was the reason that probably resonated with me the most. How many institutions in here support ROTC on your campuses? Huge number. Let me tell you, that is really, really important. As you probably know, the biggest source of commissioned military officers in the country comes from ROTC, not the academies, not other commissioning sources, but ROTC. And that's becoming more and more important as we realize that the military is staying at a pretty fixed number. If you include reserves, maybe 2.1 million, compared to a U.S. population, 320, 325 and growing. As we become the military becomes a smaller portion of overall population, you don't want it to grow to the point where people don't understand our military. So having a commissioning source through our public institutions, educational institutions, I think is really, really important. So about 5 years ago, I was minding my own business, heading up I-70 from Kansas City to K-State, and I got a call from a board of regents that said, would you mind serving as the interim president of Kansas State? Kirk Schultz, the current president, had left. It was a closed search, and as they say in the West, the herd was nervous. And I'd been up there doing some work. They said, would you mind just doing that for an interim time? I said, okay, I'll do it for an interim time, but if you don't find somebody in the next 5 or 6 months, you're going to see 2 red taillights heading east back to Virginia, where my family is, my grandkids are. That all changed. When I got to campus, I just loved being there. I loved the energy. I liked interacting with students. I loved the faculty. They sometimes liked me. When the head football coach, our Hall of Fame coach, Bill Snyder, said, Myers, you ought to just stay, you're a good fit here. I mean, not many people turn Coach Snyder down, so I didn't. And it was, it's really been a great, I'm in my 4th year, I guess now, my great time there. I was coming up I-70 another time when I heard this song, and I don't remember who sang it, who the artist was, but it was a song about, I'm too young to feel this old. And I thought about that, and I just flipped it. I said, I think I'm too old to feel this young. And that's what a campus can do to you. You all know that. I've learned that. There was a lot that I did not know when I applied for the position of president, as you can imagine. I knew some things, but there was a lot I did not know. But what I did know, and what I now believe more fervently than ever, is universities are indeed, as we've talked about tonight, a public good. Critical, I would say, to our economic prosperity of the United States, critical to our democracy, and as I'll mention just a little bit later, critical to our national security. Ties a little bit back to ROTC, but there are other things I'd like to mention in that regard. I think the public thinks so too. The recent Gallup, well, the most recent Gallup poll in 2018, while confidence in higher education had decreased from the previous 3 years, it was still fourth highest. The only three organizations that got higher confidence ratings than higher education were the military, small business, and police. Behind us were things like organized religion, U.S. Supreme Court, public schools, and so on. They had much lower confidence ratings. So I think that notion of a public good is out there. We can articulate what we bring to this nation in a better way, I think, and that's already been talked about. But we are definitely a public good. I think the Morrill Act of 1862, which is the reason Kansas State University exists, that was an act of democratization, providing access and affordability to anybody that could qualify to get into a college or university. It was one of the first, in my opinion, first big social movement in this country. Has helped so many. Public good includes many areas. One of them that we all are involved in, and part of it was success in education, the moral obligation that when you get somebody at your institution, it's your obligation, your moral obligation to get them out the other end with a degree. We take all of that very seriously at Kansas State, of course, but generally in public education, we want young men and women to graduate with cultural awareness. So when they join the workforce, they appreciate diversity and value inclusion. And that doesn't always come with folks walking in the door. They have to learn that. Who are flexible and adaptive thinkers in our ever-changing world, who can discern fact from fiction, and who have a service orientation. And I'm always amazed around spring break when I'd ask students, what are you doing? Well, nobody's going to the beach anymore, at least not from K-State. They're all going out on service projects, and I think that's probably true for your institutions as well. The public good also includes economic development. That's the last 15 years, I guess, Federal Reserve Bank study that shows that education attainment has implications for how state economies perform. Higher proportion of college graduate educated adults correlates to higher per capita income. In Kansas, our Board of Regents is finally, in their new vision, going to put economic development in the third pillar, which I think is overdue, but helpful. Manhattan is home to soon-to-be open biosecurity level 4 national laboratory, the National Bio-Agri-Defense Facility. It wouldn't be there if it weren't for our College of Veterinary Medicine and our College of Agriculture. We also have formed a partnership with things that higher ed can do so well. In fact, many times it's only us that can do this. But to form partnerships, we have a knowledge-based economic development at K-State or KBED, and it's a partnership between 7 entities from the university and our Manhattan, Kansas community. The goal is to support growth of knowledge-based companies in the region, capitalizing on world-class research and talented workforce. KBED was recognized a couple years ago with the Innovation Award for this innovative partnership program. Again, partnerships is something we do well. Another example is a program that leverages K-State students in computer science, business, and agriculture to build out a platform that matches farmers looking for goods or services with other producers willing to supply them. Often referred to as the Airbnb for agriculture, it allows farmers that don't have the latest equipment to connect with those that do. The public good also includes solving local, regional, and international problems. On the local front, one closest to home, and I'll use these are my best examples because I understand them best. They're not the only ones I know everybody's involved in this, but these I thought were good examples of solving local and regional problems. We played a key role in solving a local and regional problem. Sustainability of the Ogallala Aquifer in the High Plains. This stretches from South Dakota all the way down to Texas. It's also the largest freshwater aquifer in the world. It contains glacial water that, once removed, is not replaced at a significant rate by surface water infiltration. Decades of usage of the water from the aquifer for irrigation far exceeded its replenishment. The Kansas Water Office led an effort to establish water technology farms. These farms were run by Kansas State University by our researchers. And the farmers, while not being from Missouri, they had this show-me attitude. If we can be more efficient in our water use and crop productivity doesn't decrease, stays the same or increases, then we'll believe you. So we were sort of the honest broker that had the wherewithal to put together owners, farmers, private sector irrigation equipment suppliers, and we had large-scale farms to do our research. We were viewed, as many of you are, as a trusted and unbiased source for technical expertise. And then farmers, after some of this research, said production was increasing while we had a 35% reduction in the water we were drawing out of that aquifer. I think it's a good example about how our universities have unique capabilities, resources, and the obligation to serve. In rural communities in western Kansas, water's going to spell their death knell if we don't solve this problem. In solving international problems, one of our USDA Feed the Future innovation labs partnered with Mars, candy bar folks, in Nepal, a long way from Manhattan, Kansas, to improve food safety and nutrition and prevent crop loss. The issue involved fungal toxins called mycotoxins that can have devastating effect on crop production and human health. Mars was interested since its sources short. Could I get a glass of water? I'm running out of, doesn't need to be fancy. There's some on the wall over there. It doesn't need to be from the Ogallala Aquifer either. Mars was interested since its sources globally want safe food and also committed to helping all stakeholders in the food supply chain. The project represents a key example of public land-grant universities partnering with the private sector, governments, and others who participate in the agricultural supply chain. And here, just a little break, if you will. Here's where I think national security comes into play. I'll give credit to Dr. Dalton at KSU, one of our professors who leads one of our innovation labs. And he used the Jamaican singer Bob Marley used some of his lyrics. You may remember this in one of his tunes. He says, "A hungry man is an angry man. A hungry mob is an angry mob." Thank you. Oh, thank you. That's pretty good. Thank you so much. A hungry man is an angry man. A hungry mob is an angry mob. You know, I think it shows that all these things we do, not only domestically, but internationally, and I imagine every university in this room has some touch globally that makes us all better, but it can really contribute to stability and to peace. I think very, 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 very critical. So we are connected to national security. And providing this public good also includes promoting free speech and expression. Teaching good citizenship, if you will, allows us to act as neutral arbiters where debate is encouraged. Our K-State statement on free speech and expression, which is based on the University of Chicago statement of the same, modified slightly, has a guiding principle to provide all university members the broadest possible latitude to speak, write, listen, challenge, and learn. We're individual members, not the university, judge the value of ideas, and to act not by seeking to suppress speech, but by openly and vigorously contesting those arguments and ideas that they opposed. That is not necessarily understood by all who walk on a campus. And so we found we had to be intentional about that, and intentional about the education and to help learning. Universities are seen as neutral ground, and I taught for a while at National Defense University, which is, as you know, a DOD, a Department of Defense-run university. it was seen as neutral ground as well. That just being a university was a neutral ground. If any of you have served, and I know some of you have, in our United States interagencies in Washington, D.C., having robust policy discussions at your own buildings and premises sometimes doesn't work. They would often come to National Defense University to have those discussions. It was a nonpartisan location where solutions to tough problems could be found, or at least inform the policy formulation. Just as I was attracted to the military because of a sense of serving something bigger than myself, I imagine most of you are in higher education are here for the same reason. At least I hope you are, because from my vantage point, you are serving the public good, you are a public servant, and there is a higher calling, and none could be more important, as I mentioned earlier, to our democracy, to our prosperity, economic prosperity, and for that matter, to our national security. We all have a high calling. And I can't think of a calling more important to the future of our country, to our democracy, or our security. That's definitely, in my mind, a public good. I'm still an outsider in many ways. I was certainly an outsider when they asked me to become the president of Kansas State University. I'm not a scholar, but I have an appreciation for what higher education was all about. And I'm still an outsider in many ways to higher education. But I do have great respect for all of you and for what you are doing. And I'm honored to be among you today, and appreciate you listening to me. And tomorrow we'll celebrate Veterans Day, but as you think about that, think about the contribution you all are making to our country. It's equally as important. Thank you very much.